expression of how many signs does one person get before they have exceeded the mathematical probability of coincidences. I think at one time I actually used to keep a record of them. And then it really, with this many of them, it really, I think, for the average person, begins to be more like a Disneyland production. It doesn't seem possible. It seems like a fairy tale. I mean, it just seems like a fairy tale. It's good that I can actually chuckle a little bit, but it's a fake laughter. It's a forced laughter. Because mostly what's behind that laughter is rage. A screaming out for judgment by this creator that left an imprint of his divine nature in our DNA. And to go against that, you're sinning actually against your own existence. Made in the image and likeness. I mean, whose story are we living out anyway? It's not mine. I'm not that good. I'm good at repeating the same story over and over because it's a true story. If I had to make it up, I would have to memorize what I said. Because there would be no structure implanted in my brain that had the data, the memory stored, the pictures, the sounds, the smell, the emotions that went with the experience that happened at a set time, and now reliving it can bring back the same emotions once experienced. I've always been, not always, don't say that, God, that's so profoundly wrong. Always, no. For me, there were these set times in my awareness that certain biblical statements resonated a much deeper, profound level of my own awareness. God is love. What? That changes the love described in Corinthians, which is a work, which is a verb. It's something that the noun does, person, place, or thing, describing the person, place, or thing. You can have adjectives to describe it, but you can have verbs that describe an action that the person, place, or thing is doing, is experiencing, is revealing. I'm far from a genius. I'm a freaking small fry. I identified with my heritage. Had a hard time simulating it in my own way. I've been quite rebellious. Oh, how rebellious have I been. If I spent time just going back and documenting all the signs that I had that have led me to where I am at today, I don't think people would have any better of an understanding about how we all arrived at this point in the human historical revelation, whatever you want, names you want to give, what we are all on this planet right now going through. 8 billion people are living through this time in human history, and every single one of them that has the conscious ability to evaluate their own life experiences to determine who are they, what are they doing here, where are they going from here, who shall they love, who shall they call judgment on, both in the flesh of the existence and the soul, the invisible consciousness of that existence. Many attempts have been made to take control of the consciousness of humanity through all kinds of manipulated tools. Oh, yes. Oh, my God. I have been subjected to them. But I'm telling you, the evidence is overwhelming for me that I turned off those receptors in my brain at a very early age and no longer was receiving this information coming by the teacher standing in front of what they called a classroom of students. On a debate team, I seemed to be always on the losing end, in a minority, very much a minority. When I started on Twitter, 2000, whatever, there's a start date in there somewheres. But what did I get on there for? I got on there for my own congregation in this small little church that I assembled with on Sundays and sent 2 of my children there. And I was in Bible studies there. I was in other group. I was involved in the Sunday school for children. They can go back and try and delete those records if they want to, if they are really just trying to just save their own reputation, because the evidence is going to be there of what transpired. I sent them an email calling them out. The email's published on my Facebook page. I didn't tell them I was coming that Sunday, but somehow they seemed to have been prepared that I was coming because they had the FBI and Baltimore County Police there. One of the people there, which was a government asset in one of those agencies, sent me a response in Twitter. I have a copy of it, even though they took all those accounts down. I took a screenshot of it. She knows who she is. I don't think she stopped. I think she became a whistleblower. I think she probably saw me and said, "What is this guy doing? He's just a little guy. He calls himself Smalls." I never said I was the Smalls that played in Sandlot, but I identified with the character in Sandlot because I actually lived an experience that very much was like the experience in that movie. I have spoken to two of those characters that played out in my story. Melvin Bafford, Richard Keller. They were part of my Sandlot experience, except we didn't have a Sandlot. We had a, what did they call it? It wasn't asphalt. It was something else, like gravel mixed in with tar or something. I forget what they called it, but that's what we played in. It wasn't cement, but it was a stone surface. It was a court, meadow court. What is this? What was that noise? Weird. Oh, God, you're always having this. So I had across the street, we had the Kellers. 6 kids, 3 boys, 3 girls. No, 4 boys, 2 girls. I'm going to name them. Donald, David, who passed away at a very young age, Richard, Michael, Barbara, and Caroline. Their father was an elder. I don't know what they designated his title, but he was very much involved in the ceremonies on Sundays in a Catholic church. He read scripture, so he would read the epistles, and the priest would read the gospel. So there was usually 2 readings, and it was usually a lay person was doing the epistle, and the priest that represented the hierarchy of the Catholic Church would read the gospel. I put that in other. I'm not. What? Can we just cut this now? You saw what you wanted to see, and then you got off onto another little tangent. Hard drive. Is that the trip to the state of Washington, Seattle? I don't know if you saved that or not. Is that the one? That looks like a different one. All kinds of CDs that most of them were for the computer, I think. Seems like you're missing a, okay, there it is. So the city was Seattle. Incredible experience. What's this one? I don't know. There's nothing titled on it. There's nothing written on it. So, I don't know. You lost most of that stuff. Most of the tapes you had, all the tapes you had that you filmed with the camera that I had back in the late 90s and early 2000s, that camera and all the tapes are gone. They were in the fire. I don't know how that suitcase and what was in it was down on the table that was sitting here. That table was sitting right here when the fire that started in that room upstairs right there. I replaced the ceiling here before I moved back in. Whatever it was, a year after the fire. No, it was a year and a half, I think, because that's how long they gave me. It was a year and a half, even though, you know, we were in, what was the dispute? For me, the dispute was, I said, pay off all my debts. All the shit that was supposedly in the fire and was destroyed because Serpro and State Farm determined they weren't going to pay to try to salvage any of my property. They have it all on record. That's what pisses me off. It's like I'm fighting to simply get my story told correctly by State Farm and the fucking banks. If the house was destroyed,
Not by my determination, but by State Farm's determination. And Serpro, who's supposed to be the fire restoration experts in the fucking country, we can't help you. Okay. They already had a crew come in and take out what they thought was the most valuable things and take it to a warehouse somewheres. Yet they said it was all destroyed. So what was that supposed to do? Oh, they were just going to turn in an inventory list to State Farm for a reimbursement of some value that they would be the ones to determine of. They're the ones that determined everything. They determined how much the house loss was. They determined how much my personal property was. They determined how much they were going to give me to live while they were trying to figure out all that nonsense. I was like, I told them early on through my adjuster, Greg Bagwell, pay off all my debts. Everything I owned, you said, is gone. Well, I bought it on credit, for God's sakes. The fucking tree came down in 2007 and wiped out the second floor, okay? How much of my shit was lost then? This shit is just, for me, it's like I still have the same emotion tied to it, not by what happened, the tree coming down and wiping out the second floor and having limbs coming through the second floor down to the first. Okay, that my kids were in the house, my wife was in the house, I was in the backyard. Okay, was it dramatic? Yeah, it was. And what did they do? They stuck my wife and my children in a fucking little one-room place while they determined what was going to do. Because you know what? They want to make you think that you have control, but you don't have any control. They got all the control. So then the fire comes. The story's the same. The story's going to be the same until the day I die. Me and my daughter were downstairs watching 3 Days of the Condor when we both heard a loud popping noise come from that point in the house, which was above our head and behind us, which means it was coming from what was known as Isaiah's room. We were sitting under what was once Hannah's room. Then she moved over to where Bridget's room was. So all of that is... I don't really believe that none of them are going to change their stories about their experiences of living here on Cuba Road and living with the nutcase that we, call me. Whatever. John Lamb, Pat Lamb, Smalls, Idiot, Wacko, whatever name you want to give me. But I'm not going to change my story because people call me a bunch of names. Or don't talk to me because they say I'm crazy. My family had me arrested, for God's sakes. They don't say it wasn't arrested. Yeah, it was arrested. If the police come to your hotel room and say, we're here to take you in, it's arrested. And what did I say? If I don't want to go against, they could put handcuffs on me. Those videos all out there. Those guys were freaking jewels. They got 100% of my support in that whole ordeal because it's not them are not the ones that caused that whole incident to happen. They were following a court order. Our fucking courts are so fucking corrupt. They didn't even give me a chance to respond to it. They simply came and got me, took me in front of the whole hotel. Because I'm sure the people were all looking as these two police cars pull up to the hotel, and then they're in the back, and there's that kooky guy that they've been watching for, by this time, weeks, get up and walk around. We don't know where he's going, but he's gone for a long time. So it is what it is.
freak them all out. The monster is here. BAM! Why did you have to do that? I don't know. It's because, so much of my stuff got destroyed in that fire, which would have been, more evidence of my obsessed behavior really throughout my entire life. It's really, it is kind of disheartening. What's that word mean, disheartening? It means there's some separation of something that happened outside of your heart's desire. So it was kind of disheartening. Losing that stuff. When I was out there in the yard with my daughter as we were watching the house burn, and we were standing there with a Baltimore County police officer who was videotaping us and videotaping the fire. And the fire marshal showed up to do an investigation, because they are called in to do investigations. I mean, this was not an obvious... What's going on here? This started in a bedroom. It's not a kitchen fire. It's not a fireplace fire. It's not because of a storm hitting with lightning. This is what caused this fire to start. You think I didn't want to know? We both heard the loud popping noise. What was up in that freaking room? My cell phone, for one, which I never recovered. My credit cards, my debit cards, and all my most valuable pieces of property were in that room. Tupperwares, those big Tupperwares, some of them, those aren't the ones, but those are the size out there. They're fairly big Tupperwares. I don't know how many I had. I'm sure I have a picture, but unfortunately the pictures, a lot of them didn't survive. What size is that? I think that's like a 30 gallon. That's what I thought, 30 gallons. That's what they were. They were 30 gallons. So I had 30s and I had 20s. The 20s I think were blue. The grays were the 30s. But none of them survived. But when the fire marshal was standing out there in the yard with Hannah, myself, Baltimore County Police, as we were waiting for the firemen to do their final inspection to say that the fire is out and no longer a threat before the fire marshal would go in and do his investigation with black lights and all this stuff. So they did, and I just told him before he goes in there, because I talked to him for a minute, and it's recorded, and Baltimore County has it recorded. Whether or not they destroyed it or not, I don't know why they would. I mean, it doesn't take up that much space, and it was a fire. But I asked him, I said, listen, I know you're going to go up there and do the investigation to see what the cause of the fire was, but if you could... And I told him that room had the most valuable stuff that I owned was in that room. And I said, if you could find any evidence that some of my pictures survived the fire, could you bring them down? And he shook his head, yes. And, that was the end of that portion of the conversation. And I don't remember how long it took them. It took, could have been anywhere from a half an hour to an hour. I don't know that time frame, but it's all recorded. And he came right over to me as he came out, and he walked over to me, and he handed me a stack of pictures that had all burnt together. They melted together, and I would say it was probably 3 or 4 inches thick, because that's what I had. Tupperwares, and there was just stacks and stacks of pictures in there. I didn't put them in photo albums, except for the ones that were the prize ones, which were in a photo album, along with my slides that were also in an album with individual sleeves and individual slots for each 2x2 slide. They all got destroyed. They didn't survive. But the other part for me is that when, that was on a Friday night, and I really only went back in the house for a second, and I don't even remember what I was going back in there for. I think I went back in there to find my keys to the car.
I think I did shoot upstairs and just quickly glance into the room and saw it was toast. And I think I was just checking to see whether or not my phone and my wallet would have survived it, and I didn't see any evidence that it survived it. So, and then the phone logs are going to show that me and Hannah sat in the driveway as this company showed up to do the emergency board up, supposedly what State Farm authorized them to do, as this company Platinum showed up in my yard that night along with two other companies. The company that took the property out of my house and took it to a warehouse, the stuff that they determined was salvageable, and then any valuables that they could find. And then another company was the company that was going to do the estimate for the damage on the house. And all of these they all knew each other. They were all standing together when the fire was burning. They all showed up at the same time, within minutes of each other. It doesn't matter how many times. If I tell this story 10 years from now, it's going to come out exactly the same. I don't have to write it down. I don't have to go back and play these recordings over and over to make sure that I'm saying the same thing. If I'm fucking wrong, I want somebody to fucking show me where I'm wrong. Show me some evidence that will help me turn that around in my mind. Because you know what? I was under the deceiving set of scientific theories that I had to become awakened were totally false, fraudulent, and thieving mechanisms to enrich a very small part of the population. And that is the shit that just didn't sit well with me, and I can't get out of it. You know, they've tried drugs on me. They don't work. I don't say I didn't like them. I'm not saying I didn't like them. The absolute opposite is true. I liked them. My brain, the receptors in my brain liked them. Whatever it was doing to those neurotransmitters, releasing, endorphins and other chemistry that would trigger, feelings of whatever, utopia, whatever. I mean, it's like it does something to you. And these are discoveries that the scientific community made, and some of it was natural stuff that you could find, out there on the planet Earth, and other it was concoctions by mixing up, different things don't naturally occur. People already know this. Why? Don't go over 30. Oh, stop.